So right now I'm making my way through Soho, walking through this lovely square here. Well, it's not lovely, it's a square, but I wouldn't say this is one of London's lovelier squares, but one of the more sort of ordinary squares called Soho Square. I'm heading towards Chinatown, my home away from home, for bubble tea. I think to myself, I shouldn't really be drinking bubble tea because it's not very healthy, is it? But then I also ask myself, how unhealthy is it, right? Because everything we put in our bodies nowadays is unhealthy pretty much, unless you live on an organic, natural diet, which I actually tried for a while. And I did feel the benefits. It was amazing, but it's really not easy to do. There are so many temptations everywhere you go, because going out is eating, isn't it? So it's very hard to avoid eating junk. A little bit of junk is okay, as long as it's not the bulk of your diet, right? And for many people it is. I know some people who live on nothing but processed foods, and I know that bubble tea would be considered an ultra processed food. But as I said, it's all about moderation. So I think as long as if you eat mostly real foods, which I do, and just keep the ultra processed foods to a minimum, then I think you're okay. So now I'm on Gerard Street, which is the heart of London Chinatown, and you'll see above me there are all these beautiful red lanterns marking the autumn festival, which is in full swing at the moment. So now I am in this little lane that I call Bubble Tea Lane, because there are so many bubble tea shops on this little lane, but it's actually called Newport Court. It's only about, I'd say maybe 100 meters in length, but there are so many bubble tea shops just within this small stretch. I would liken it maybe to Mong Kok in Hong Kong. I can't remember the name of the street, but maybe somebody can tell me in the comments. There's a street in Mong Kok that's got a load of bubble tea shops and stinky tofu and fishball stalls. Stinky tofu, I hear you say? Yeah, oh my god, don't get me started on that. One of these days I'm going to do a video just about stinky tofu. If you know what I'm talking about, you know just how smelly that shit is. It's like if you were to go up to any back alley behind a restaurant where there's a dumpster, that dumpster smells like stinky tofu, or chou doufu as we say in Cantonese, which literally means stinky tofu. The reason it stinks is because they ferment it, and the fermenting process makes it, to many Chinese people, the most delicious thing on earth. But to people like me who grew up in the West, it's the most disgusting smell. It smells exactly like a garbage dumpster. So I'm gonna go into this shop here, Lucky Tea, which is my personal favorite here in this lane. If you don't already know, we Chinese are very superstitious. So we name a lot of things lucky, and we believe very much in good fortune. We're always seeking out good fortune. So that's why a lot of things are named lucky, or fortune this, fortune that, like Fortune Garden or Fortune House or whatever. Thank you. I got my fix, my pearl milk tea. This is what I came all the way here for because I am addicted. I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm addicted to this stuff. Damn, so good. Oh my God. So here is evidence that I wasn't exaggerating when I said this is bubble tea lane, because there's a dedicated bubble tea recycling facility here. It's got different receptacles for the different components that come with your bubble tea. So you've got one for the straws, lids and film, another one for the liquids. For example, if you're a British person, you tried it for the first time and you're like, this is fucking disgusting, which, trust me, this is a situation that I have been in many times where I've convinced my mates to try a bubble tea and they think it's the most foul thing they've ever had because they're quite sweet, right? A lot of people don't like sweet milky tea in the UK, but us Hong Kongers love our tea sweet and milky. And that's for the plastic cups and that's for the paper cups. Now this is something that the whole world should see. London, Chinatown is setting an example for the whole world here. I don't even think I've seen a dedicated bubble tea recycling facility in Asia. Is there anybody watching this in Asia who can say that they've got one of these where they live? Let me know in the comments. You know what, you're gonna have to bear with me a lot in this video because the sign of a quality bubble tea is that the bubbles are really chewy, and so you should expect to have to chew them for a long time before you can swallow them if they're good. The more rubbery they are, the better, but you don't want them rubbery and hard. They're supposed to be rubbery and soft. So sometimes you get bubbles that are like too hard, and that means they're a bit stale, they've been sat for too long. But you want them to be, they should have a good sort of bounce, like all processed foods really, right? Because like good pasta or good noodles are al dente. They've got a good bounce. You have to chew them a lot before you are able to swallow them. You know, plenty of mastication. No, not mastication. It means chewing for intelligent, educated, erudite people like myself. So what was I saying? Yeah, you're going to have to bear with me because every now and then So I've got a true story to tell you on this subject, because when I was going to school in Vancouver in the 80s, so when I was going to school in Vancouver in 87, 88, I went to Point Grey. Anyone know Point Grey Secondary School? Let me know in the comments if you do. Back to my story. In Vancouver in 1986, they held what was called Expo 86. It was the World Exposition, World Fair, sort of showing off what a wonderful city Vancouver was. And after that, Vancouver got flooded with Hong Kong Chinese, because at that time, all of the people in Hong Kong who could afford to were trying to find a new home where they could resettle their family and raise their kids. Because there was a lot of fear that when Hong Kong was handed back to China in 1997 as agreed, that they wouldn't be able to continue to live the lives they were leading. And so there was a mass exodus and a lot of people ended up going to Vancouver. So my school got flooded with Hong Kongers. Prior to that, it was very white. And then all of a sudden, it became very Chinese. And in the school canteen, all the Chinese kids sat in one section of the canteen, and the white kids used to make fun of them because they chewed with their mouths open. It was something that used to embarrass me because the white kids made fun of the Chinese kids for that. And then when I looked at them, I noticed, oh my God, a lot of them do chew with their mouth open. And that's just something that in Asia isn't considered rude, but it was considered rude, or it is considered rude in the West. I don't know if people today are still conscious about stuff like that, but at that time, in the late 80s, trust me, like all the kids in school, all the white kids in school made fun of the Chinese kids for chewing with their mouths open. And so that's why every time I take a sip of this boba, you know, that was really difficult for me because it's really, really hard to chew boba in a handsome sort of way. And you know, when you're a content creator, you try your best to look good. And it's not something that I was ever aware of before I started creating content, that I have an ugly boba chewing face. But I'm working on it. I've been working on it. Yeah, because modeling is not about being good looking, but about knowing how to give good face. Because if you ever see models in real life when they're not modeling, you're like, oh, they don't look as good as I thought they did. It's because they're not modeling. When you're modeling, you're making a face, you're pulling a model face. You know, like on America's Next Top Model, when Tara Banks is always yelling at them to know their angles and all that. Models are just people, okay, you've got to be born with a certain sort of, you know, facial structure and all that. But most of it is about how you hold your face. And it's very hard to hold a sexy model face when you're chewing boba. But on another level, one of the reasons why I love bubble tea so much is that it's like a home comfort to me. Because when you grow up as an immigrant, there are little things from your motherland that you really miss, that just make you feel instantly at home. And for me, bubble tea is one of those things. I left Hong Kong when I was 3, so as a child I didn't really have many memories of living there. And the first time I went back to visit Hong Kong in the mid-80s, I was about 12. I immediately felt like I was home, even though I didn't know the place anymore. It was all foreign to me. Like the city was just, it took my breath away, and it wasn't anything like how I thought it would be. But to be surrounded by my own people speaking my mother tongue, I just felt so comforted. It was really nice being the same as everybody else and not the odd one out. Because in the UK, at the time that I was going to school, I was like one of the only Chinese kids in my whole school out of over 1,000 kids. And my race was always front and center. People used to like come up to me and say, "Ching Chong Chinaman, ah so," and they pulled eyes at me and stuff like that. And it was just like a daily occurrence. It doesn't happen anymore, thank God. That was something that happened a lot in the 80s because there weren't many of us here. But nowadays, I'm not even conscious of the fact that I'm Asian. because London is such a melting pot, and there are people from all over the world here. And yeah, I'm just not aware of my ethnicity. But in the 80s, I was mega aware because I got bullied like every day at school for being Chinese. So the first time I went back to Hong Kong, it was so nice just to feel like the same as everybody else. And it's not something that I care about anymore nowadays as an adult, because I feel like the world has changed dramatically for the better. So back to my story. When I visited Hong Kong in the 80s for the first time after moving to the UK, I felt instantly at home. And then after having the summer of my life in Hong Kong, reconnecting with my culture, and when I came back to the UK after that wonderful experience, the only way to cheer myself up was to come to Chinatown and feel that sense of belonging. So anywhere you go in the world where there's a Chinatown, you'll find a population of Chinese immigrants or diaspora who are just relishing in that comfort of home that they left behind. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up here, and I'd like to say thank you for listening to my ramblings. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please hit that like and subscribe button for more.